Well, welcome back to Painting in a Twist. This is our second topic or section, and we're going to start landscapes. Remember, we talked a little bit about composition last time. So I'm going through a couple of photographs here. I like the colors in this. I like the blue, the way that blends. I like the trees here with those little patches of blue, but I think the trees might be a little bit, they may require a little bit more. Now I'm looking at one for Marble Falls. I like the way this one lays out, I think. Now typically a landscape's going to be horizontal, but this has got some vertical elements in it that I think might make it a little bit fun to work with. For starters, let's get rid of this section I've X'd out over on the right. And then let's look a little bit at some possibilities. Approaching this landscape as a vertical is a new twist in a sense, and I kind of like it. We could begin this by emphasizing these kind of nice diagonals. Diagonals typically give you a sense of movement and composition, which is highly desirable, I think. So that might be an approach. Or we could treat it as that horizontal image and then go in and not just emphasize the diagonals, but also think about some of those strong vertical lines in the back. I like that. Let's try it. My setup is pretty much like before. I'm going to start with that dioxazine purple or violet, and I'm going to add some of that Mars oxide red to it, Venetian red, I believe. And I like blending that, and it kind of gives me that, I don't know, that warmish, not quite purplish look. Doesn't make much sense, does it? So I'm just going to start in looking about where I think I see that first diagonal. I'm along the edge of that creek in the back, bringing down the diagonal on the left. That's a little bank that kind of protrudes out. Now I'm just looking for the form here. I'm just kind of laying out a map of how I see that composition compared to the photograph that, or the version that we're using on this. I'm going to make this pretty conventional in the sense that it'll look sort of like the photograph. I obviously cannot be photorealistic. That just isn't my style, I guess. But just looking for those diagonals again, just a slight kind of a lazy Z one side and it swings to the other side, and that gives you kind of a gentle bit of, just a little bit of movement that keeps it from being quite so, I don't know, boring maybe. Picking up with a palette knife, just smear some of that color around to give me some of the heavy areas. I keep pushing my palette back, or my easel back. I don't mean to do that. Then I have to pull it forward again. So push-pull, I guess is what they call that. Anyway, looking for those lines. That's a trunk up there. That's another nice, soft diagonal. Just kind of leading into that little bank that protrudes out in the water. And then just indicating some of those darks from the reflections. I'm very aware as I do this of how much I want to keep those bright blues that will give me I don't know, just a little excitement, I think, in all that dark. Just trying to indicate where some of those shadows are falling, and they make those nice diagonals too. Looking for the forms as much as anything. Kind of a massive dark in that area that I'm laying in. Just adjusting, want to make that as gentle. A lot of times the line itself, the weight of that line that you're putting in, makes it become more of a shape than a line. At our last session, we talked a little bit about this cold wax, which I believe is a Gamblin also, and it's just it's almost like some kind of cream, a little waxier than that. Just a little bit of it. You should never have more than 1/5 of the wax to the rest of your paint. So keep that proportion like 1 in 5 to your to your paint. That'll help it stand up if you want to put any kind of protection on your canvas later or keep it from coming apart. Anyway, so I'm mixing that with a little bit of cold wax just to get maximum coverage back on my canvas. Again, the canvas, like before, has got that, what I really like right now, that nice metallic bronze under painting, and it's acrylic. I put it on real quick before and let it dry before I paint on it. And I usually, when I get all the stuff out, I usually try to do 3 or 4 canvases at once, have them all primed and ready to go should I guess I ever wake up with the burning desire to get to a canvas quick. Usually that doesn't happen until about mid-afternoon for me, but anyway, I'm still not able to get that coverage that I'm looking for. And I could break down and just grab a big brush, and I may in a minute just to make it work. But at this point, just trying to get those shapes and those darks in. Probably can't tell too much about, in terms of progress, it looks pretty much like where we were before, I guess. Now, aside from those little diagonals, I don't want to walk away and not put some feeling of those nice strong vertical lines. So as I lay in that lazy kind of shape that gives me that sense of movement, I'm going to start looking for verticals. I'm going to start looking for something that will make it interesting. A horizontal composition on a horizontal canvas is one thing, but that vertical is just going to anchor it a little bit when I get them in. Now, I'm not sure, as I'm feeling for where they might be, I'm not really sure that I'm going to leave them right here, but I'm using, for the most part, my photograph as some kind of a reference. Still, my approach to this, maybe because I was a printmaker for so many years, my approach to this is to find my dark areas. You just visualize those dark areas, lay those in, and for me, that's your blueprint. That tells me where I'm supposed to go. That's my map, where I'm supposed to go and how I'm supposed to get there. Not a real efficient GPS, but it gets me there. So I'm still looking for those shapes. Don't want to ignore that background or the top part of the canvas, as those nice diagonals lead into that stream that's going to kind of give us some beautiful colors from that reflected water and some other possibilities, I hope. Okay, I'm a little out of patience here. I want to get those darks in a little more massively than I'm managing with the palette knife at this point. So I've got my brush, and I can expand those lines, make them more like shapes. You begin to get a feel for the definition of where that bank and that water meet, which gives us that nice line. And of course that tree trunk that gives us a little bit of an indication from the left margin into that other diagonal that's kind of against the one from the top right. Got to find those verticals still, got to keep that nailed. And you can see the dark areas. Nothing in the sense of details quite yet on this. Like I said, I'm just looking for those darks. At this point, it's dark areas and diagonal lines. So I keep finding that diagonal line, looking at the reflections a little bit to see where I need to lighten up or give some of those thinner shapes. See that diagonal that's beginning to emerge there. Now I've lost some of those shapes, so I'm going to go in and see if I can find them again by wiping. That's going back and finding some of those negative edges. What I'm doing here is trying to keep those forms in mind. I know I want to do those strong diagonals, but I don't want to lose the bank. So I'm kind of playing it very carefully. I'm not really thinking about it. I'm kind of feeling for it, you know? And I make lots of references. You can't see me looking at it, but I keep looking at the photograph to see where that dark goes and what that shape's going to be like. And I adjust it, I adjust it a little at a time. And it's an intuitive thing almost. There's a point when you've got to switch back into that left side of the brain and you have to look at it and analyze it a little bit and kind of stand back. It's not this perfect painting that you're going to hang in the Met. It's a painting you have an idea for and you're trying to get it there by just feeling those forms, just kind of going in. I'm looking for balance here, and I want to be sure I have a place to go in the back. And then I start to think, gee, that's an awfully empty corner. And it is, it is. But if you look at the photograph, there's kind of something going on there. So at some level, I'm trying to decide what exactly is going to go on there. And like I said, just kind of looking for the balance. I know I want that to be very strong right there. I know that I want it to have the little breaks. I've got the paint on the palette knife, just kind of moving it. And I can't really tell you why I like to do that. I don't really know. I mean, I can't put it into words exactly. It just gives you a different texture, a different stroke, a different just something else I'm looking for, and not so much am I looking for it, you know, analytically. I'm looking for that feel. Does it feel right? And then when I do the analytical part, that's after it feels right. Okay, it feels right. Now I need to go back and look at it analytically and make sure that it really is what I want it to say. Looking for a balance here. Not really sure where to find it. Feeling for that shape, seeing how that bank edge, just those little adjustments that are going to tell me, yeah, that's a little bit of a creek bed down there, and there's that water line. Still, just not thinking about it so much, just feeling for what it looks like. Sometimes you have to lift the paint, and sometimes you have to lay the paint. It just depends. Look at those shapes, see if it feels right. Okay, now what I really want to do is balance out a little bit. I need more dark up there to kind of nail it. I need to be sure that you feel that there's a landmass back there, not necessarily just this empty, atmospheric space. And this starts to feel right for me. I'm starting to get that balance. And that corner, you can tell, I'm a little bit hesitant about where to go with that. There's a tree there. Not sure if I want it to be light or dark. It's not real sure, so I'm going to go back here and worry the base a little bit more. This is kind of that aha moment. Just as soon as I get that dark in there, it's like, ah, yes, that's where that diagonal needs to go. So I'm pretty happy now that I've balanced that. And that's just, like I said, that's just feeling for that form, feeling for what that landscape's about back there, and keeping those diagonals in mind that we talked about. Going to give myself a few of those verticals because that's going to give me that sense of water, and I know that's happening. But that area I'm working on there is really the shade on the bank. Um, but I like the way it's balancing now. I think we're about where we need to be on that part. Okay, at this point, I'm concerned with the dark shapes that are sort of moving in that water. I'm trying to make that water become in fact that reflective pool. I know I want to preserve those areas, keep them clean, where I'm going to come in with the bright blue, but I want the rest to be very interesting. I want it to be kind of neutral, because I want the strong color to be the thing that really pops out of the blue part. But I just feeling for it again. I know I want something there. I know I'm going to have those little vertical movements with the water reflection. That gives us that sense of deep. So, I'm just looking for it again. Okay, I'm still feeling for those shapes in the water. That vertical is going to help me fight against that horizontal composition or make it interesting. I'm not really fighting against it, but those lines kind of give me the sense of where that water is going to be. Um, the very dark part you see in the bottom right is really a dark shadow of the bank. So that somehow is going to come out or going to work okay. Need to keep it balanced, need to be sure that I've got those diagonals dominant, and basically just feeling for those shapes. You see me with my paper towel, and I want to be sure that I smear that just a little bit. That kind of gives me a tonality, so I get that sense of depth that I'm looking for again. Trying to keep that, not lose it, still trying to suggest where a landform might be doing something, but at the same time, make sure that stream comes across that diagonal part of the canvas. Those are little rock shapes that I may decide to leave or may go in and take away when I start actually adding the development of those colors as I put the palette in. Okay, now I'm looking at it strongly and I'm doing some of the analytical part. That diagonal sets up nicely. There's a little counterbalance and another one up there. Verticals are helping me kind of anchor that canvas. Looking for the reflection verticals in the water. Going back up there to make sure those diagonals are strong enough. Now I'm not thinking those are trees. Really I'm not. I'm thinking diagonals and verticals and see, that just needs to nail it a little bit. I'm thinking verticals there, obviously, huh? And then you need that landmass, just some sweeping kind of horizontals or slightly diagonals as you make it happen. This is actually a little ceramic tool. It's I don't know what you call it, but it's like a little rubber eraser at the end, and I use it to sometimes make a line through paint, very fine lines. And it reveals that metallic underpainting, which I really like too. As you know, finding those land masses, really getting it to a point where I think we're about done before we put the palette in, of course.